A part of that plan, of course, is to induce the gradual surrender of American sovereignty, piece by piece and step by step, to various international organizations, of which the United Nations is the outstanding but far from the only example.
High-ranking military officials are reported to have contacted family members, telling them to get ready for larger events to take place in the United States of America, telling them to get their food preps in order, to go to the store, buy food, and buy extra gasoline. We're seeing some of the reasons why this may be happening, and we're getting ready for these events to take place in the USA. According to Bloomberg, Chinese and Russian oil and logistics companies are getting fat from money in this war. The dollar will continue, they say, to be dominant in the world. Get this, they're not saying that it's going to be dominant forever. Listen to these timelines. This is according to a new poll of economists and the Federal Reserve and those working for and with the government. The US dollar will remain dominant as the reserve currency of the world for at least 3 months. So they're saying we're good for 3 months. That's about as far out as they can put this entire mess that we are in.
Ding dong, the witch is finally dead. Let me tell you why. What we're watching is the death of an ancient Babylonian Luciferian financial system that has been controlling humanity for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Can you say bye-bye to fiat? What do you know about BRICS? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, all creating their own currency. Bye-bye fiat, bye-bye corrupt financial system that controls humanity. This is the apocalypse. It's going to be like the end to many people who have not prepared themselves.
This is not the type of stuff you hear on the news. Australian bank is collapsing right now. And this is happening in a whole bunch of banks around the world. But this is the type of stuff you won't hear in the mainstream. Look, they're telling them to take their cash out. What you think is about to happen? They're about to reset the whole game. It's on you though.
But let's talk about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. What is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve? It's actually 4 huge underground caverns that are full of oil. And this oil is to be used in an emergency. The 4 caverns are located in the south along the Gulf of Mexico. And they're authorized to hold up to 727 million barrels of oil. And this is for an emergency. Now, it could be an economic emergency, it could be a war, it could be whatever the president and our government officials want to use it for. But it's there for a purpose. President Biden is actively selling off of our reserves. This is going over to Europe, it's going to Asia, and it's also going to China. Yes, China is benefiting from this oil. Right now we're really at the lowest level, I think, since 1986. So we're not doing good. Right now, Biden is selling oil. So I don't think he's out to help the economy. So to go back to think of, are they trying to help us get us out of this economic recession? No, they're not. They're doing everything to get us into more trouble, to indebt us more.
This is Dabu 7. Are you ready for rolling blackouts? For the lights to go out? Well, the power grid operators across the U.S. now warning that that is exactly what is about to happen. And they're trying to blame this whole thing now on a transformer shortage. We hear all these excuses, but it always goes back to the same place. The ones pulling the strings, implementing all this stuff. And we've taken a good look at all the different sectors of the grid in the United States, looking at Texas and its big bulk supply, and it getting hit several times here recently by the weather in terms of ice and snow and then the heat. They're now saying that because of supply chain crunches and because of, I'm telling you, it's staged events around the globe, that they can't get the stuff that they need. And they can't get the circuit breakers, the transformers. Meaning that if the power goes out in some areas, it's just going to stay out. It's not just going to be rolling. It's going to be out until that stuff can get fixed. So again, I just want to put the warning out there and let it be clearly known that they are stating that they cannot get supplies, simple supplies, like these normal transformers, distribution lines, poles. They're saying that they can't get their hands on. They're not readily available. This sounds like some crap to me, and a perfect excuse to add to the mix here for when the lights go out.
Now, the United States of America right now is ready to assist South Korea in an attack against North Korea. The U.S. military is ready to assist Israel in an attack against Iran. The U.S. military is ready to assist NATO and assist the Russian opposition in an attack against Belarus and Russia. The problem is going to come when all three of these conflicts strike heat at the exact same time. Will the U.S. military be able to fight on three different predominant fronts? Military strategists say that it is not likely. The Belarusian Deputy Chief of Staff says that Washington is planning right now another conflict against Russia and its allies from Poland and from the Baltic states. In what is being seen as an unprecedented joint address from the leaders of the FBI in the USA and MI5, they are warning business leaders and academic chiefs that the Chinese takeover of Taiwan will represent one of the most horrific disruptions to the supply chain in the Western world that our planet has ever seen. The Bank of England is saying that there is a significant risk of further disruptions in commodity markets as we realize that this energy crisis is literally just getting started. Together, both leaders stress that the West is in conflict right now, and that in this conflict, the very way of life of American people and Western-aligned people are at risk of being completely shut down.
A part of that plan, of course, is to induce the gradual surrender of American sovereignty, piece by piece and step by step, to various international organizations, of which the United Nations is the outstanding but far from the only example. Now, here are the aims for the United States. 1, greatly expanded government spending for every conceivable means of getting rid of ever larger sums of American money as wastefully as possible. 2, higher and then much higher taxes. 3, an increasingly unbalanced budget despite the higher taxes. 4, wild inflation of our currency. 5, government controls of prices, wages, and materials, supposedly to combat inflation. 6, greatly increased socialistic controls over every operation of our economy and every activity of our daily lives. This is to be accompanied naturally and automatically by a correspondingly huge increase in the size of our bureaucracy and in both the cost and reach of our domestic government. 7, far more centralization of power in Washington and the practical elimination of our state lines. There is a many-faceted drive at work to have our state lines eventually mean no more within the nation than our county lines do now within the states. 8, the steady advance of federal aid to and control over our educational system, leading to complete federalization of our public education. 9, a constant hammering into the American consciousness of the horror of modern warfare, the beauties and the absolute necessity of peace. Peace always on communist terms, of course. And 10, the consequent willingness of the American people to allow the steps of appeasement by our government, which amount to a piecemeal surrender of the rest of the free world and of the United States itself.
Medvedev suggested that the United States of America has not but should be held accountable for several bloody encounters and territorial grabs itself, and that it would do well for the USA to not look at Russia before examining its own history. This is a quote. The entire U.S. history since the times of subjugation of the Native Indian population, according to the quote, represents a series of bloody wars. The U.S. and its useless stooges should remember the words of the Bible. Do not judge, and you will not be judged, so that the great day of his wrath doesn't come to their home one day.